And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Shakinoni Nichols, and I will be your host. And today we have two special guests that I want to bring up. They've been on our show before to discuss some very serious matters and issues around the trans community, right? We talked about this before, but we're going to get into a topic that you're really not hearing much about. And we're definitely going to cover the incident that happened last week in Minneapolis. And we are definitely praying for the families there, just for their comfort during this time and just as a community that they can really come together, to help solve some of these issues going on. And with that, I'm going to bring up my guests, Gabrielle Clark and Nikki Johnson, Dr. Nikki Johnson.
Good
Hey
morning.
guys.
Morning.
Thank
Good
you
morning.
so much for joining me again,
Thank
right?
you for having us. Yeah,
But
good to
when
be back.
this incident happened, you were the first two that I thought about because our last conversation, you were kind of leading and alluding to the fact that, something could happen, right? With the social transition part. And that's a topic that everybody's really not talking about. So either one of you want to start first? Go ahead.
Well, and interestingly, I mean, I did. I looked a little bit about the individual who was the shooter. I don't like to use names to kind of glorify some of this stuff. However, the little bit of
Mhm.
information that I could find out was that this person was not happy with being trans and
Mm.
was trying to figure a way out of the madness and but specifically made a post or a statement about keeping the hair long because they didn't want to sort of openly backtrack on their position about being trans,
Okay.
and that
Right.
that social part of the um, or that physical part of the transition that was most obvious to people. So they were worried about the backlash from the trans community
Right.
by doing that. But it did make me think initially about the social elements of the transition itself, and not all of the physical. Oh my gosh, Baxter decided to just do a lap around the
Yeah.
wood floor.
That's
So
she
I
got
like
she got
what
she
they
got a she got a
call
puppy.
it.
And I was like, the dog is like,
Yeah.
there will be a minute.
Um, yeah.
I will be a part of this show.
Yeah. No, I'm so sorry. But it did, make me think about that element of the whole thing is just
Mhm.
the idea that a person would change all of their features to satisfy a certain community, and thinking about the effects on the entire community around
Right.
the person because of the social transition. There's so much that goes into this that people don't often consider, and that's something that we think about and talk about a lot with Affirming Reality.
Gotcha.
For
Gotcha.
sure. I
And
mean,
Gabs?
most definitely. I mean, I've been, you know, wringing my hands and pulling my hair out, trying to make people understand that social transition is not innocuous. And when you look at the recent mass shootings that of people who are identifying as trans, it is my belief, and I have nothing to corroborate this other than just my knowledge on the subject, is that they weren't, most of them weren't medically transitioned, most of them were socially transitioned.
Okay.
And people say, well, if they're not taking hormones, if they're not taking puberty blockers, then what drove them so crazy? Well, I don't know. Lots of cults, lots of people in cults are crazy and they're not medically altered. I mean, Heaven's Gate comes to mind, a castration cult, clean eating, clean living, but they still
Mhm.
all committed mass suicide. I mean,
Right.
essentially, is seemingly there wouldn't have been anything wrong with them other than that they were doing these weird, crazy things, these insane things, um, for just for a belief,
Right.
with no real medical intervention to drive this. So it's safe to assume that even if someone is not medically altered in any way, can still commit a heinous crime and can still be indoctrinated to the level of madness. And I really I really always try to caution people and say, hey, listen, you can't just assume that people will grow out of it, because clearly this young man did not. And it's because it is very difficult to undoctrinate yourself with no help and nowhere to turn, especially when when you're a member of a cult like the gender cult. They are ravenous. They have driven people to suicide. They've driven people to do all kinds of crazy things because of their relentlessness when you don't obey their dogma, when you don't follow their doctrine.
Yeah,
And
and I
I
think
want
a
to
lot of
emphasize. Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
I want to emphasize the point that you made that people do not have a place that they can go for help.
Mhm. Yeah.
Their traditional psychiatrists, traditional therapists aren't, and medical professionals aren't equipped to deal with the person who is trying to escape this particular cult. A lot of people don't even look at it as a cult. Let's
Right.
say that. Even the non-affirming therapists
Mhm.
and professionals may look at it that way, but a lot do not look at it as a cult. And what you have to do is to deprogram someone from a cult does take a level of expertise. And if you
Mhm.
don't first recognize it, you're definitely not going to apply those techniques at all. But these people feel isolated. They don't feel they have a way out because they don't have anyone who is openly available to them, who they can count on to help deprogram, to help them deal with all of the feelings, the emotions, the psychological aspects of what they're experiencing, especially those who have physically or medically transitioned or started using medications, things like that. They don't have anyone who's openly and outright able to that they can turn to, and they can feel confident that they're going to get the care that they need. That is really difficult and to watch and witness. And I think that is a big part of what we witnessed here. This person did not feel they had another out. They were crying for attention. Yes, they chose homicide, a way to do that. But nothing about how they are coping with life is normal anyway. So to expect them to come out of this with a response that's appropriately um, showing that they can cope is unrealistic.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the things that we're teaching here is that these the people who are adopting this type of a lifestyle and have succumbed to this cult mentality are people who don't know how to cope with life in general, don't know how to adult, don't know how to make wise decisions and choices that are beneficial to themselves and don't affect other people. And
Okay.
that's one of the things that we teach parents to do with affirming reality is that this is an individual responsibility of parents to make sure that their children are equipped with the appropriate ways to cope with tragedy, with disappointment, with bullying, with
Rejection.
rejection, all of those things that drive adolescents toward adopting a false gender identity.
Mm.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the politicians that I've seen, they're either extreme one way, they're trying to protect the individuals in the cult, right? Not seeing it that way, or they're opposite the other and saying this is just something they'll get through, right? This is just a phase of life and not really taking it seriously that this is a cult and they need to be deprogrammed, as you were stating.
Yeah, yeah. and
And
and they're choosing, they think that they're protecting it, and in some ways the laws are going to protect children from medical medicalization and surgical treatments. I mean,
Mhm.
Gabs and I both can attest that we know that there's kids who are getting this stuff from other places as well, not
Right.
just the United States, from off dark websites, all kinds of places that they can get it if they really want it. So, but there are some protections legally that they're
Mhm.
offering by not supporting or taking away the means to get medical hormones and and surgical treatments. But
Yeah.
that is not solving the problem. The problem is a cultural problem, and as we discussed repeatedly, a problem with being in a cult
Yeah.
mentality
Yeah.
is
We have to call it what it
not,
is.
you can't legislate that away ever.
Yeah. It is difficult because at that point, like I had been saying for a long time, I said, this is a religion.
Mm.
It is. It is truly a religion and it's taking on the form of a cult.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, and the hardest thing to try to make people understand, um, especially when we're looking at stuff like this with these, they automatically assume, okay, this is mental illness, and this is, this, they're just crazy or whatever, or we need to have more mental health. But our mental health professionals do not know how to deal with this situation. Um, so even the ones that are non-affirming, they still don't know how to handle this, because I mean, one of
Mhm.
the things that Affirming Reality teaches parents is they teach parents how to connect better with their children so that their children have a soft place to land when
Mhm.
it's time to just let this fake identity go, when it's time to just let
Yeah.
this illusion go. And a lot of the times that's all that's necessary. But we don't, no side teaches that, right? That
Mhm.
no aspect of this, of the people that are interested in this, and who are making laws about this, or who are attending to this problem, none of them none of them address that. They don't address how do you, give someone almost permission to just let it go. And there are some people who are able to do that without incident. I mean, we've seen both, Dr. Johnson and I have seen that happen, especially in the public sphere on Twitter with detransitioners, stuff like that. But that doesn't come with no support. So
Right.
someone who is, isolating, they're not talking to anyone, they're separating themselves from all the people who love them, and they're only getting the attention from the rainbow people, you know what I mean? The
Right.
gender,
Right. Understood.
they're only
Understood.
getting the attention from that. They don't know how to just let it go and gently
Mm.
ease out of it. And this is
Right.
what we teach parents. We teach parents how to reach even their adult children, because that's another thing. We get people saying, how can you help an adult who doesn't want to be helped?
Mm.
Well, I mean, we help people all the time who don't want to be helped. A lot of people who are in cults don't want to get out of the cult until they get out and they realize, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad somebody saved me. I'm so glad somebody cared."
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we don't we with with my daughter, I didn't force my daughter to come to her senses. I
Mm.
I I cleared the way so that she could see for herself, so that
Right.
she could decide for herself, by teaching her how to be more responsible, teaching her how to be more thoughtful, teaching her, to have, self-awareness and self-esteem, and let her be the judge. And that's all that's necessary. But
Yeah.
because the conversation surrounding this is so far off the mark,
Yeah.
when it comes to identifying what's truly wrong, what the real problems are, what the real struggle is, what the real issues are, and how to solve them. This never gets addressed, and then you have people, like this guy, 23 years old, transitioned when he was socially transitioned when he was younger, had the reluctant support of his parents, even changing his name, and then having regrets and not knowing how to cope with it. The
Yeah.
entire thing is a maladaptive coping mechanism, and it needs to be addressed.
And
Yeah. So
because
with
his
that,
parents were
I want to
supportive.
check. I
Oh,
want to get this video in, and then I'll get your response,
okay.
Dr. Nikki.
Okay.
So let me bring this to the stage.
Haha, nice.
Yeah. So I wanted to show that before you had made your comments, Nikki, so you could further elaborate because it seemed like that was the
Yeah, that's
conversation that you were
my
going
comment
down.
would do it. So as Gabs was saying, in Affirming Reality, we do give parents the, the tools and the ideas to believe that they are the soft place to land for when their
Mhm.
child comes away from this. If you are a parent who is affirming, you aren't that soft place to land because you participated in the delusion.
Mm.
You how does your adult child, how does your young adolescent, let alone your adult child, come to you and say we made a mistake together and
Right.
and and please help me out of this?
Mhm,
You've
mhm.
already agreed to doing this.
Right.
So the other piece of this is that, as Gab spoke about earlier, the conservatives who specifically want to blame this on medications, medicalization, any
Mhm.
mental health disorders, specific mental health
Right.
disorders, which no one actually can name, by the way. There is no mental health disorder for like named for this. It has been given as gender dysphoria.
But is
Um,
that really what it is? And I hear where
even
you're
though
coming
people
from
are
with that.
loosely, yeah, don't even always necessarily meet all of the criteria. I mean, if we actually
Right.
get this person who's start regretting their decisions, they may not even meet the criteria anymore. So that aside, but you have these people who are specifically trying to blame it on these certain things,
Mhm.
but they are also giving permission for people to actually adopt this social change in their lifestyle. They're encouraging
Right.
parents, live and live, let adults let it be. Well, this letting adults let it be, or watching and waiting and see if they'll grow out of it, is does have effects on the community as a whole. The entire family has adopted this personality and this new
Right.
change in this person's viewpoint. This person
Right.
now clearly has made detrimental effects on a community of people. So
Right.
everyone is affected, even
Mhm.
when adults make delusional changes in their lifestyle. We cannot accept this at all. And that doesn't mean we have to enact legal practices or legal that lay down the government force to prevent this from happening.
Right.
It just means that we need to deal with the cultural aspect of it, because I'm not advocating for a legal, you can't legally tell someone you can't say this is you can't say this is your name. You can try as much as you can,
Right.
but you can't. No one could have forced this person to stop going by certain pronouns or stop outside of on official documents. So you're not changing the cultural phenomenon that's making this possible. You're not changing the fact that people are in this cult and encouraging this type of behavior at all in any legal format. We have to address this cultural aspect of it. And that is why we're here. That is why Affirming Reality is here. And our hope, our vision is to be able to teach our coaching methods to people who are encountering individuals who would go down a path of gender transformation. And that's everybody, the social workers, the psychiatrists, the psychologists, and any parents. So right now we primarily work with parents, but our dream is to actually be able to get in and influence how this is dealt with, from the mental health aspect of it, because these are the people who face these individuals, who they see when they run into trouble. We can't make this change through legislation. It's just not possible, no matter what.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
what
because to your point, we'll be putting legislation, and then we'll be maneuvering to policy and different bills and amendments. And to your point, as everybody's doing all this paperwork over here, like what's happening to the babies?
what's happening to,
When they turn grown-ups, and
what's
like
happening
what are
to the
we really
families, the
actually
schools,
letting happen? Right,
the
exactly.
communities. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
right now we've seen the result of the effect on the community in the most negative, harmful way possible.
Wow. So, Gabs, your take?
I think an example, I mean, a lot of people don't understand what we mean when we say that even the non-affirming therapists or people who are trying to help, why they don't know what to do, why are they inadequately trained on how to handle this type of thing. So I'll give you an example. I was in a group of therapists, and we were all discussing it. And a social worker had a case, 15-year-old female who identified as trans. And on their first visit, what he told her is, I don't see a boy, I see a beautiful girl. That's just like telling a crazy person, oh, you're just crazy. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it-
you're siding with the bad part.
Yeah. Or the anorexic who sees themselves as fat. You're
Right.
telling them, I don't see a fat person.
Yeah, you're not
Right.
fat. I mean, that does not help.
And as a therapist, that is not something you say to that person. It's not going to cure them. It's not going to make any meaningful change. That person's going to, oh boy, you're right, I'm cured, I'm walking out of your office. You know that. So why would you do the same thing?
That's one of the reasons why I feel like there are so many therapists who actually end up making the situation worse because they don't recognize this problem, because they've been told that it's something else. They've been told, gender dysphoria, all this. I mean, a lot of conservatives think that, vaccines and hormone, endocrine disruptors in food is making people believe that they're the wrong sex. Well, I'm sorry, that's ludicrous. Nobody believes that they're the wrong sex. It's a maladaptive coping strategy for their disdain or discomfort or rejection or trauma or whatever it is. And it doesn't matter what the initial cause is. You can get started on the program, and the program will work for everyone because we go back and deal with the root causes after we establish reality. There's plenty of ways to handle this without causing the person who's going through it more distress than what's necessary. But unfortunately, even non-affirming therapists do not know how to do that because they only know or understand what they've been told.
Okay, and with that, we're going to get into this next video that I wanted to get you guys' reaction and feedback
On
on.
this heartbreaking story is U.S. Army Special Forces veteran Jim Hansen. Jim, the FBI, as we said at the top of the show, says it is investigating this shooting as a potential domestic terrorism and a hate crime. Your thoughts tonight?
I think the evidence is obvious. There is a video showing that this person prepared a voluminous collection of weapons and magazines, all covered with slogans that might as well have come from the indoctrination of the woke left. They have created a collection of now shock troops and terrorists who are putting the same ideas that you might hear from high-ranking Democrat officials. Trump's a fascist. Israel must fall. Anti-corporate slogans like sponsored by BlackRock. The left is responsible for this. They created this monster, and it's time for them to stop radicalizing these people who are delusional.
Yeah, they're too busy calling the Trump administration Nazis. Jim, I wanted you to listen to this. The mayor of Minneapolis already talking about trans hate. Listen to this.
I have heard about a whole lot of hate that's being directed at our trans community. Anybody who is using this as an opportunity to villainize our trans community or any other community out there has lost their sense of common humanity.
Jim, let me get your reaction to that. The mayor already bringing up trans hate. It's just hours after the shooter murdered kids praying in a church, and that's what he was focusing on there.
The hate came out of the barrel of the gun that trans terrorist aimed at those children at Mass. This is something that they've been coddling people and telling them that their delusions are reality when they have a diagnosable, mental illness called gender dysphoria. It's time to quit telling them they're oppressed and the Trump administration and the church and everyone else is doing terrible things to them and giving them ideas that they need to take revenge.
And you know what? Democrat Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar quickly called into MSNBC and blamed the shooting, of course, on Republicans. Listen to this.
All the work we've done to ban these automatic rifles and to do something when it comes to the background checks and everything, and we keep getting thwarted. We were able to pass a limited measure on a bipartisan basis, but not enough to stop something like this. And it just makes you think about that.
Well, far left MSNBC host Jen Psaki also blaming President Trump for the shooting. Video believed to have been posted by the shooter shows "Kill Donald Trump" on gun magazines. I mean, we talked about this at the beginning, but, shouldn't the liberals be toning down the rhetoric?
The stuff that was written on those weapons and on those magazines might have come from the Democrat platform. So it's obvious who's radicalizing these people. It's obvious that if they want background checks, how about background checks for people who are so delusional that they are a man who believes they're a woman? I'm not sure I want somebody like that buying weapons. And apparently we've seen this. We saw it back when the trans shooter shot up a Christian school in Nashville a few years back. This is a dangerous problem that the Democrats and the left are making worse.
We'll have to leave it there. But as always, Jim, thank you very much for your input this evening on this very sad story.
Now, what I find fascinating is now they're making it a political football. And the other interesting thing in that video is they literally said everything that you guys said we shouldn't be doing. Like everything. Yep. I was looking at your faces. You were like, what? What? Really? So I'll let you guys give me your feedback. What's your thoughts? Because these people, like, and I'm saying, like, people watch me on X, but I'm not MSNBC. I'm not seeing it. Like, look, I'm just trying to bring out the information. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead.
I have a
where do we start? Where to begin? Yes.
Where do I start? I mean, I think, first of all, politicizing the whole thing is bad on both sides.
Yes.
Both sides are equally culpable in this politicization of it and all. the gun topic is for another day. I think I can talk about that all the time, but if we are giving soft targets to people who are mentally disturbed, then that's a big problem. So that's all I'm going to say on the gun issue.
Yeah.
But yes, I have a couple of issues with conservatives making this a mental health issue. Number one, and particularly for all kind of gun mass shooting type of deals. If we're going to make this a mental health issue, and we are inviting mental health professionals to make decisions about whether or not someone is safe to actually own and operate firearms. If you are opposed to the mental health profession and you think they are too woke and too indoctrinated, which they are, why would you give those people control over your decisions about who gets to own and operate firearms? So that's number one. Number two is, I agree actually with the mayor. We should not be taking out our hatred and targeting people who identify as trans, as individuals. These are human beings at the bottom line. They need our help, they need our support, and just as we've been talking about, they need a soft place to land. No, we don't excuse violent behavior. We don't excuse delusions. We deal with the cultural problem head on. We don't go, but we also don't go and start targeting other people in the community and making a huge, case that this is all trans people, because then this goes back to the issue of whether or not they're medicalizing. We can actually look at the school shooter information that the Secret Service has put out over the last few years, and they profiled a lot of the school shooters. The majority of these kids were actually prescribed psychotropic medications. We do not know how many of them were actually taking these prescribed psychotropic medications. So we can make a lot of inferences about things, but I think that is where conservatives actually go really wrong in this, is we do make too many inferences and take those inferences as facts and truth and then draw conclusions. But in the end, we're still doing the same thing that the left is doing by politicizing it and then giving government the control to decide people's medical freedoms and all of these other things. There's just so much packed into this that I don't want to skirt the issue.
Like he said a lot,
yeah.
and that's the reason why I wanted to play it second after giving you guys, some of your input, because I was like, oh, I know when I showed this video, they're going to be like, what?
Yeah,
Seriously?
I just think my main issue is, no, we shouldn't be politicizing this at all. Let's not take away, let's not detract from the real issue here with this particular individual. And it is that there is a trans cult and people who need to be deprogrammed, and there is a way out that none of us is willing to actually take and manage, except for us here at Affirming Reality, and and dealing and trying to prepare people to actually deal with the real issue. So.
Yeah, Gabs.
I'm like ready to burst right now. Because you know what? Seriously, the sensationalization on both sides is making this 1,000 times worse than what it needs to be. There's and of course he said all the things that I just said. Conservatives are saying that is wrong, and it's making things worse. At the heart of it, I had a trans identifying daughter. At no time did I ever think that she should be under some kind of medical, supervision or in a sane asylum or any of those things just because she was identifying as something other than her natal sex. She needed my guidance and my love. And she needed a soft place to land. She needed a clear mind away from indoctrination. And I don't think that automatically qualifies you as a nut job. Okay. I mean, because that's essentially what they're saying. You know what I mean? I mean, and we as conservatives, we've been saying no to red flag laws for I don't know how long, because the very powers that be that we don't trust can then just say, oh, well, you wore red shoes, you wore white shoes after Labor Day, so clearly you're insane. I mean, I don't want that power given to the government. And I think for me, personally, I don't see why we shouldn't use common sense solutions instead of government overreach to deal with our societal problems. And as far as the rhetoric around the trans community or whatever, listen, if you continue to villainize them, then they're going to continue to radicalize.
Yes.
So how does this
Absolutely.
help to say to continuously make people who feel like they have no place in this world? How does isolating them and attacking them help that situation?
Yeah. And it dehumanizes them. The same thing that you're accusing them of doing to you.
We want to bring them back. I don't know why that. I don't know why that's not the go-to solution. When we think about drug addicts, we think about all of these other things. Or even criminals. Our first and foremost thing should be to rehabilitate. Not just throw them away. We've seen how wonderful things can happen to a completely rehabilitated person. Yeah. But the more we try to just throw those people away, then they feel like the less they have to care about any given situation. Wow. I want people to come back. I want our children. I want the next generations to survive and to thrive. And if we can't do that, then what are we doing?
Wow. I mean, well said.
Yeah.
Right? Because nobody's thinking about it in these terms, right? No one's having this conversation. As far as I know, I haven't seen it. Nobody really wants to have it because you know what it requires? It requires work.
Yes.
It requires all of us doing the hard work, right? Having the hard conversations and not just turning our back and throwing our hands up and saying it's on you, right? We have to do better. So with that, I'm going to give you guys last words. Whoever wants to go first.
Social transition has real consequences. It is not harmless. Watchful waiting is not the answer. Affirming reality is.
Okay. All right. And where can we follow you to find out more information about affirming reality or people out there looking for assistance?
People who need assistance can go to my website, which is below my name here, drnikki.online, and click on the services tab. There's links to schedule a free, complimentary 15-minute consultation, and then we'll decide together if our program is right for you, and then we'll schedule a more formal one-on-one 1 hour long coaching sessions to help you as a parent guide your children, adult children and young adolescent children out of this cult mentality. You can also follow me on X at Not a Provider MD.
Okay. And Gabs?
You can find me at Affirming Reality. Our website is down for construction right now, but it should be back up pretty soon. And you can also find me at Gabs Clark 5 on Twitter. Most of my socials on most social platforms at Gabs Clark 5. And if you want to learn more about Affirming Reality, you can go to Affirming Reality's Twitter handle at Affirm Real. And I would just like to say that our future generations are depending on us to cure the societal ills that we have, so that the future of the family is our staple moving forward. And if half of our children are disillusioned by the family unit, then where do we as a society Where do we go from there? I want to bring them back. And Affirming Reality can do that.
Oh, amen. Well, thank you both for joining me here on Unfiltered Vision News again. And, having the hard conversation, right? But also looking at solutions. So, again, thank you guys for joining me here. I appreciate you both.
Thanks for
Thank
having me.
So, guys, again, definitely I will leave the links below this video. And I just want you guys to remember that there is hope, right? We are not lost. There are solutions. But again, to their point, throwing our hands up and blaming those that are really in a mental state that isn't good. We need to be the ones to, as Gab said, bring them back. And as Dr. Nikki said, be there to give them the support that they need.